Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. I'm here tonight with Luanne Lee, and we're going to talk about the CSS profile. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to spotlight you, Luanne.
Sure.
I will spotlight myself. And let me send this to Facebook in case anybody wants to catch it there. And then we will get started. But actually, while I'm doing all that, just say a quick hello in the chat, if you don't mind. Tell us where you're watching from. And I assume most families tonight are parents with seniors. If you happen to be doing this for a second time, let us know if you have kids that are already in college, and we'll get started.
And if anybody is from Warrenton, Virginia, come on down to the office and keep me company.
Okay. And the last bit of housekeeping, this is recorded. Somebody I quickly saw, it says no volume. I'm assuming, I think most people can hear us. So if you had no volume, that maybe you should check on your
I just
controls.
saw somebody from Warrenton. Let's do that.
This is recorded. We send out a link to the recording tomorrow. Luanne does a great job. There are a lot of slides. We're going to try and get through most of them. She might skip over a little bit. But my guess is that this might be something you want to watch again, particularly if you're new to the process. So you'll have the opportunity. It will be on Facebook. It will be on YouTube. And we will get going. I'm just going to turn on captions. Okay. You ready? You want to share, Luanne?
Yep. So let's.
And I'm sorry. And lastly, you can definitely put questions in the chat. Depending on the question, I might try and answer it directly, or we will kind of take some breaks and I'll ask it to Luanne, or if not, we'll at the end look through and see if there's any major questions that we didn't get to.
It's saying here Zoom quit unexpectedly, but it'll come back here in just a second. So I'm going to, can you see my screen, Debbie?
Yeah, we can see you and we can see your screen. So I don't know what quit.
It's.
Oh, okay. I guess Luanne did have to restart. So let me make sure I can see her when she comes back. All these technical problems.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, let's try this again. We're on Zoom. Are you seeing the
yes, yes, it looks good, Luanne.
Okay, great. All righty. So sorry, guys, the tech gremlins are, not our friends sometimes. But we're going to be going through the most exciting part of your year is the CSS profile walkthrough. Very tongue-in-cheek. But Debbie and I have been doing this for several years now between the CSS and the FAFSA. And, it's just one of these necessary evils. If you've got a student that is heading off to college in 2024, or maybe you already have a student that's in college and realize that you have to file the CSS again. Some schools, most schools don't require it other than the first year. But if you receive institutional aid from those schools, oftentimes you will file it in the next year. So let's go ahead and the CSS profile. When you log in to, and this is at the College Board, you will file for the fall 2024, spring 2025. Now, today is October 1st, and typically this would have been launched the opening day today, but it actually opened up just over a week ago. So I was able to go in last Sunday. I spent 6 hours going through each screen and doing screenshots and such. So this is it's a tedious form, but it's very worthwhile to do. So what does the CSS stand for? The College Scholarship Search. And that means that there are almost 300 schools that are using the CSS profile. And many of them are private, more selective schools, but some of them are what we call like state Ivies, and your big state schools like University of Michigan, UVA, and in Virginia, William and Mary, and so forth. And those are schools that they're using of their own institutional funds to kind of entice you to say, yes, I'm going to attend your school. And so they're going to, since they're giving of their own money, they want to do a very deep dive into your financial picture, see what your financial foundation is. And they've got, the algorithms and the enrollment management behind the scenes where, you as parents don't see this, to figure out exactly how much do they have to dangle as far as a carrot to get you to say yes. So the FAFSA, which we're not going to talk too much about tonight, and I know everybody's, wondering, when is it going to open up? Typically, it would have been today. It's going to be sometime in December. I still think it's going to be the last week in December. But the FAFSA gets the federal aid, but the CSS profile is the institutional aid. And it's not free like the FAFSA. You will pay a $25 application fee for one school, and then each additional school will be $16. And so to put that into perspective, I talked to a family 2 days ago. They have 20 CSS profile schools on their list. And so that's $329. So it starts to add up, in addition to the application fees and the SAT fees and transcripts and everything else. So there are, if you earn less than 100,000 adjusted gross income, you could qualify for a fee waiver as you're inputting all of your earnings and your income and assets and such. It will, when you get to the, where it comes time to pay, some of you may be surprised to find out that you don't have to pay any fees. If you had received an SAT waiver, you automatically also will not have to pay any CSS fees. So, or if you, the student was an orphan or a ward of the court. So what you want to do is to take the list of your students' schools, and then you're going to go over to the collegeboard.org, or you can Google CSS profile schools for 2024-25, and it will come up with this list. And you want to go through and make sure that any of the schools on your students list, are they CSS profile schools? And then if they are, then you want to see, well, do I have to file this? So Adrian College, and I have Adrian banner on my office door because 2 doors down is a friend whose daughter ended up going to Adrian College. I'm in Virginia. She didn't want to go to any school that any student that went to her high school. So she chose all out-of-state schools. And I was surprised to see Adrian College on the CSS profile. But if you notice, it's not for domestic students, those that are in the United States, but they do require it for international students. Now, for those of you that are divorced, then you want to also find out, are they going to require a non-custodial parent to complete a profile as well? You know, the FAFSA, it's only one parent household that files, but the CSS profile, the majority of them are going to ask for that non-custodial parent. And then I highlighted Arizona State University. I don't remember that they were on the CSS before. So you always want to make sure and double check with your school's website, to just because I have found mistakes on this list in the past. Now, another reason when you're filing the CSS profile is for the IDOC, the Institutional Documentation Service. Many of the schools that use the CSS profile use IDOC, and this is a service that the College Board provides for the schools. And what you're going to do is they're going to give you a list of, well, geez, we want you to upload your tax return, your W-2s, you know, whatever. It's their game, their rules. So you have to follow whatever they're asking. So oftentimes colleges that use the CSS profile do use the IDOC system that is in the College Board. But there are going to be schools that don't use the IDOC. And then, so I'll give you a tip. You want to make sure that when your students are applying to submitting their applications, that, you know, 2 or 3 days later, they're most likely going to get an invitation to create a student portal at the colleges that they've applied to. And it is so imperative that they do this, because that's where the schools are going to be, you know, submitting information, asking for required documents and such. So it's critical that they do this. You've got to keep on top of them, because you could lose tens of thousands of aid, because many of them, they see it and they think, well, I haven't decided if I'm going to attend that school or not, so I'm not going to bother. I don't want to go through all that work. You make sure that they do the steps, because it could, you don't want to leave thousands of dollars on the table. So you can go to the collegeboard.org to log in. You're going to log in with your student's College Board username and password. And now, for the non-custodial parents, they are going to log in and create their own College Board account. They are not logging in as their student, they're logging in as the parent, and then they'll input their students' you know, information to connect. Now, they're also saying, well, if you, as the custodial parent, you don't want your kid to see your financial information or such, you can create your own College Board account and do it that way. I've never done it like that, and I've been doing this for my clients for almost 20 years. So, but they give you that opportunity. I will just say, if you just log in as your student and you go through this, this is not, there's over 100 slides here. This is a tedious form that takes, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of information. This is not for a student to do, in my professional opinion. And they already have notified us that the system is going to be down for maintenance on certain days. So I highly suggest, do not leave this to the last minute. If your deadline date, and all the schools will have their own individual deadline dates for the CSS profile. You want to make sure that you know exactly what that date is. And I'm going to give you another tip. It usually takes the College Board 3 to 5 days to transfer the CSS profile to the colleges to get into their queue. And some schools are super picky. And if they want that on September 30th, and you logged in on September 30th and found, oh my gosh, I can't even log in. Oh, I'm sure they'll take it because it was, it was down for maintenance. No, they won't. So they might take it, but you might have missed out on some, aid. Deadlines are very, very strong with the CSS profile. So once you log in, you're going to go through the terms of service. I didn't, copy the whole thing. There's 16 items that you'll read through. You check and click continue. And now you should have, at this point, have a stack of documents sitting next to your computer. So anything financial related, your bank statements, your retirement statements, your 2022 tax returns, W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, any supporting documents, the schedules, everything, your mortgage information, if you've got rental real estate, if you have a business, if you have a farm, if you've got the 529s are parent investments. And so you want to get your statements, whether you've got screenshots or paper statements. And the assets are as of the day that you file. And I'm going to give you another tip because of all the hoopla that's going on with the FAFSA this year being so late. And especially for those of you that are kind of on the edge of, geez, I think I am going to qualify for institutional need-based aid, and I didn't think I was going to. You want to make sure that you have all of your documentation sitting beside you when you go to file your FAFSA, because now your asset balances are going to be different. Typically what I do with my private clients is we file the FAFSA and the CSS profile at the same time. So assets are the same and whatnot, but now there's going to be several months there's going to be a difference for many of you. And so just, with all the confusion and everything that's going on this year with all these changes, just do yourself a favor and make sure that whatever you're inputting here, that you've got the documentation to back you up. Okay. And so now, you're just going to get started.
So
Yeah.
Luanne, can I ask you a question? Somebody asked this question. I don't know if you can address it before you even get started. Somebody said, is there any point in filling out the CSS profile if you have net assets that would not qualify you for need-based aid? So you kind of referenced it and kind of, you said there might be some people who are on the fence, in terms of whether or not they'll be able to get any institutional money. And I know we can't kind of throw out an exact number and say, if you have this amount and this type, but is there kind of like a general ballpark? I'm just kind of throwing it out. If somebody said, our household income is 500,000, and higher, should they, is it worth their time to fill out the CSS profile?
In my opinion, yes, because if you look at, the colleges that enrollment management behind the scenes, they want to make sure that they've got some full pay students as well. So, they're looking at not only, okay, do you qualify for any of our institutional aid, but here we've got a family that, okay, they can afford to keep this student at our school. Let's give them just a little bit of a, kind of I call it a carrot, to dangle, hey, we got a couple $1,000, whether it's going to be in merit, or they look at your financial foundation and see that, okay, this is a family that can afford to stay here for the next 4 years. It does make a big difference. And so I've had clients that, have a 7-figure income, and we've filed the CSS profile and the FAFSA. You just never know. And life can change in the blink of an eye, and you might need it. But if you truly feel that, I don't want to bother with this, then fine, don't. You'll just
you have to just recognize that you are going to be a full pay person, period.
Correct. You're just going to be full pay.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So as you can see, there's 17 sections to this. And so as you get started, let's just say that you get started, you get distracted. Like with me, I have 5 dogs at home, a grandson. I get distracted a lot. So if I had to stop and log back in, it's going to tell me, okay, I got, 1 or 2 sections done, but I have all these others that I have yet to finish. Now, I will say though, the initial profile information of the student needs to be completed before you log out. In the past, if you had to log out before, or maybe you lost your internet or whatever, you log back in and think, where's all my information? It wouldn't take until you got that full profile in first. I don't know if that is this year, because I just didn't take the time to input information and log out and see if it took or not. So just be aware, if that happens to you and you log back in and it's not there, then you want to make sure that you continue to complete this initial section on the student, their citizenship. If they're not a citizen, it says, tells you if you have a visa that, or you're a conditional permanent resident or whatever. These yellow boxes where they're drop downs with tell me more. Every time that you're in a screen that is going to be applicable to you, please take the time and read those boxes to see, does this apply to me or not? I've been doing these for years, and Debbie and I have done kind of peace of mind reviews, offers of the last several years. And I can tell you, we've done several hundred of FAFSA and CSS profile reviews. I've only ever had one parent who got everything correct, and we didn't have to go in and change anything. So give it the respect that it needs and take your time going through this. So, and there's going to be times where remember that there are a lot of students that are adults, that are married and or are veterans. So just go through this slowly and make sure that you're answering the right questions. This College Board financial aid ID, once you have completed the CSS profile and you log back in, you will have a College Board financial aid ID once in your login page for your student. And so you just want to keep that as a reference, because you may need to, if you have to upload anything into iDoc, they may ask for that, or the college may ask for that number or such. So you see this screen here. Once you get to this information is accurate and complete, check mark, save and continue, then you've got all the student profile information in there, and you can kind of breathe better that if you have to log out, you'll be good.
So, sorry, Luanne, just before you go that much further, there were just questions about like who should fill out what, meaning if a parent already has an account from a previous child, do they use that same account with the,
No.
second child?
No. This is a brand new, just like the FAFSA belongs to the student. The CSS profile belongs to the student, unless they're asking if they went and created their own College Board account because they're a non-custodial parent. If that's the case, then that's your account.
They didn't specify. They were just saying, I think, because they're thinking that they had done this already, but it's really, as you're saying, the student's account. So they do need to create a new account for this new CSS profile.
Right. I seem to attract multiples.
That was the other question about twins. Yes.
Twins and triplets. Usually I'll have 2 or 3 of multiples every year. And I, CSS profiles, oh my gosh, you got to do everything. And you can't just copy and paste. So it's individual.
And another good question, somebody's asking, can they fill out the CSS profile now, even though they don't know what schools like they have, the student hasn't finalized which schools they're going to send it to?
If you want to waste a lot of time, you can, but you're going to have to choose. It doesn't do you any good if you don't have a school to send it to. So I wouldn't go in unless you know that your student is applying to a school that is going to require the CSS profile. Because it's a lot of work. So household verification, married, separated, divorced, and such, unmarried, living together, it's pretty self-explanatory, but you've got to make sure that you just follow the directions. And so now it's going to go into this next section. Please include all biological, adoptive, step-parents, legal guardians, and parental partners. So it's going to start with parent 1, and you're going to, which are they? So I always have my parent 1 to be the first parent that's on the tax return. The parent 1 is going to be the same on the FAFSA, is going to be the same on the CSS profile. I just like to keep it consistent so that things don't get confused. But you can see here also a legal guardian if a parent is deceased. So let's just say that they're asking for the biological parents, and the second parent is deceased, but the parent has remarried. You're still going to have the stepfather as well as parent 2 would be deceased. So it gets a little bit confusing there. Where email address, education, date of birth, social security number. I know people don't like to put their socials out there, but it's all connected. They're going to see it anyways. They're going to see it on your tax return. Just do yourselves, make it easier on you so that it doesn't end up going elsewhere and using your social. Now, so in these slides, Luanne is the student because I had to create a test account. So whenever you see Luanne, it's talking about the student. And just note, if they are taking college level courses like dual enrollment and such, they're still considered in high school. They are not, I don't care how many dual enrollment credits they have or AP credits. Oh, geez, they're going to go in as a junior. They're a freshman. They're still in high school. They're going to ask for the school name. Those of you with homeschool students, it's not going to show up. So you'll just input that information. If you've got students that are, if your student is in private school, they want to know, did you receive any scholarships to attend that school? And how much are you paying out of pocket for that? And it's going to be the only for the parent where the student is the custodial in the custodial household. If the parents are divorced and they're both paying some towards expenses, you are not going to put that on this CSS profile. So if you're a non-custodial parent, you're paying expenses, you will put that on your own. Their share will go on their CSS profile, if that makes sense. Okay, so now here we are. We're going to start finding the schools. And so you've got 3 different ways. You can get their code number, their CSS code number off of the list from the website, from the list for the College Board that I indicated to look to see where if your schools use the CSS. You can put the name of the school, University of Florida, University of Virginia, whatever, and you'll find out, is this school part of the CSS profile, or you can search by state. And just make sure that you're finding the right school. A lot of these schools have similar names, and you want to make sure that it's an undergrad program, not for grad school, not for med school and such. And so you're going to look and make sure that the code number is correct. So always have kind of a backup. Once you know that, you'll go ahead and select. I used American University as my test. So let's see what you're going to input your information. Are you going to live on campus, off campus, or such? And if you've already received an ID number from the school, you can go ahead and input that as well. And are you applying regular, early action, or early decision? So we've selected American University. And so now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty. And so you can, like the family that I mentioned earlier, they have 20 schools that are CSS profile schools. So they have to go through and list all 20 of those schools. It's going to be a hefty, thankfully, you don't have to do it for each individual school. It all goes pretty much, most of the information it is all going to go to the schools. At the very end, though, which if you want to just take a note of this, every school might have additional questions that just pertains to them. And I wasn't able to do that at the end of this test case. So once you get to the end, it'll come up with a list of the various schools, and they'll ask, additional information that just pertains to them. So keep an eye out for that. Now you're going to start talking about gathering up your tax return. Did you file or not file? Or you're not required to file. Everybody's different. And are you, Canadian? Are you because international students use the CSS profile as well. So it's not just for US domestic students. And then again, how did you file? Married, filing jointly, single, head of household. So if you hear it, what if my parents filed separate tax returns? So you indicate married, filing separate, even if they were not married at the time that they filed the separate returns. So it's, just read the directions. And now what in the past, I got a little bit upset when I was doing these screen shares and because I was trying to do it quickly and I thought, oh, geez, they don't have all the line item information like they've had in the past. But instead of having to click on a drop down, it's right there. So it's going to tell you on line 11 is your adjusted gross income, line 11 on your federal 1040. Did your parents or Luanne's parents, the student's parents, file a Schedule 1? Yes or no? So it's, again, just take it slow. And you're going to use the 2022 tax return. Even if you don't file this form, say you don't have to do it until February, and you think, oh, geez, I've already done my 23 tax return, and it's going to put me in a better light because I got laid off this year. I'd rather use my 23, and I've already done it. You still are only going to be allowed to use the 2022 for the 24-25 application season. You will, they are going to ask for information you'll see here in a few minutes on 2023, plus you'll be able to then also submit for special circumstances if you lost your job or less income or such. So here it is, just line by line, it's going to tell you exactly where to get that information from. Did you have a rollover? Are you receiving distributions from pensions and annuities or retirement? That is now income. It's no longer savings if you're receiving those distributions. Did you have any capital gains or losses? It's going to tell you line 7 of your 1040. Now, on here's a hint on how much did you pay for taxes, or your federal taxes is going to be on line 22. A lot of people look at line 24. They only want what's on line 22. Okay, so Schedule 1, schedule, all the different schedules is going to tell you. Did you receive any alimony? That's going to be on line 2A of your Schedule 1. And I'm not a tax specialist, so don't ask me any tax questions. But it's all, as you can see, it's all pretty well set up for you. Any foreign earned income exclusion, self-employed, SEPs, simples, and qualified plans are going to be on line 16 of your Schedule 1. Alimony paid. Don't confuse alimony paid and alimony received. And education credits, that's going to be on Schedule 3. So your W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, whatever income documentation that you have, it's not just the W-2. And in this case, Michelle is the second parent. So now we're going to take a look at the 2022 W-2s, which you're not going to have to get information on the FAFSA for 24-25. So this is where things are going to start being a little bit different this year between the CSS and the FAFSA. So again, document everything. And so they're going to walk you through exactly what boxes to look for. And, some people, they break out in hives just mentioning, oh my gosh, I've got to do my taxes. If that's you, you're going to break out in hives doing the CSS profile as well. So, just be aware. It is tedious. You got to pay attention. So if you think that you can't do this on your own, don't let anybody guilt you into thinking that, oh, you can do this. You know what your strengths are. This is too important a form to mess up. And the biggest mistake that a lot of families make is they do the double D from the W-2 and add that onto the CSS profile. You do not. The double D is your health insurance that your employer provides. You've now just overstated your deferred income. And if you've got an HSA, do not report the HSA deduction amount here. It's going to get reported elsewhere. Now, for those that are receiving Social Security benefits, really pay attention here. It's the benefits received in 2022 for all family members except anyone who will be enrolled in college in 2024-25 that were not reported on a tax return, because some of your Social Security benefits are going to be on your tax return and some are not. So, just pay attention to the difference. Alimony received in 2022, amounts reported on the tax return, but also that are not reported on the tax return. So, if you have an arrangement with your ex and, it's not going through your tax return, you still have to report that, or you should report it. And then, members of the clergy, members of the military, military especially, do not include the value of on-base military housing or the value of your housing allowance. So, other untaxed income in 2022. Just go through here. Do you have untaxed disability? Money provided or expenses paid by other household members, relatives, or friends? Untaxed military service benefits not reported elsewhere on this application. Do not include. That's just as important as what you should include. So money from student financial aid, veterans educational benefits, and so forth. Income reported elsewhere, like child support that's received. And I know child support does not show up on a tax return, but it is still considered untaxed income as far as the CSS profile is concerned, although it will no longer be considered income on the FAFSA. It will be considered an asset. So again, the distinction between the two, make sure that you've got your documentation. So now we're getting into, what do you think you're going to receive in 2023? Well, we're close to the end of the year. So just take your pay stub for, let's just say you're doing this at the end of October, and calculate about approximately what you're going to get for the remainder of the 2 months. They're not going to tie you to that figure because you haven't earned it yet. They're asking you to estimate. Same with untaxed income and benefits. What do you think you will have paid towards your retirement contributions and so forth? Now, we're talking about 2024. Do you expect to receive the same income, or are you going to have a significant change, whether it's increase or decrease? Yes or no? There, so if you are going to have a substantial increase, but you're not quite sure what it's going to be, you can put a guesstimate there, or you can leave it. If it's not set in stone yet, I would just say no. But if you had lost your job, got laid off, your business failed or such, this is where the CSS profile really becomes a very beneficial form, because it's going to paint a better snapshot of your financial foundation, where you can explain any challenges that you've had, whereas you're not able to do that on the FAFSA. So again, untaxed income and benefits, what you should include, what you shouldn't. And now parent benefits like SNAP, food stamps, free or reduced price lunch. Now, for several years during COVID, pretty much all schools provided free lunch. That does not count here. If your school still provides free lunches because of, they still have monies left over from COVID, that does not count here. But if you are a lower income family that does qualify for those free or reduced lunches and breakfasts, this is for the benefit of you. And if you're on Medicaid or temporary assistance for needy families. So employment information, a lot of people are employed W-2, but maybe they've got a side business, and so you would check both, employed by others and self-employed, retired or not employed by choice, stay at home moms or dads that have chosen to stay at home to help raise the kids while the other spouse is working. That's where you would indicate, not employed by choice, or if you're retired and you're not working. So have you ever been in the armed forces? And what is the primary occupation? And how many years have you worked there? So it's all pretty self-explanatory. Retirement plans, which ones did they participate in? So it can be one, none, several. We're going to get to the point where then you have to tallying up the balances. Any military income benefits and such. Now, housing information, is the address the same? Now you're going to make sure that you have mortgage information handy for not only your primary residence, but any rental real estate that you may have. And what best describes your family housing situation? Do you rent? Do you live with others? A lot of people became homeless because of COVID and everything that happened with it, and are living with relatives. That would be living with others. And it says own your home. If you've got a mortgage, you're still considered owning your home. You do not use, when it comes to the figures, you're only including the information of the principal and interest. No escrow payments, no insurance, no condo fees, other types of loans, no home equity loans or open lines of credit. So it's just on the primary mortgage. What if I didn't purchase my home? So maybe you received a home in an inheritance or such. It's just, when did you take possession of that home? Now, a lot of people say market value. How do we do this? And don't go to Zillow, because it's either overinflated or under, and usually overinflated. But you also don't use your tax assessment, your insured value and such. What I tell all of my clients is, okay, let's find out what is selling in your neighborhood. And if you had to sell your home today, what's going to be your fire sale? So don't overinflate it. We're all very proud of our homes. This is not the time to be home proud. And it's not the time, if you want to sell your house for the price that you want to sell it for. It's if you had to sell it for in a fire sale. You're not going to include the second mortgages, home equity lines, or outstanding credit line balances on what you owe on the principal balance on the primary mortgage on your home. And renters enter the monthly rental payment, do not include renter's insurance and such. So, household introduction, how many are in your household, and other siblings. So they're going to ask for that information, and when you click on tell us more, it's going to open up the next screen with their, all their information. Where are they in their school year? Because they're going to try to see, well, do you have another student that's coming up right behind this other, or do you have somebody that's already in college a year ahead or such? They're still your dependent. And I know that there's, people there's so much misinformation out there about the multiple student discount for having more than one child in college and such. Everybody assumes that the private schools are going to continue to honor that, and some will and some won't. So if you are in a situation where you have a child who's already in college and receiving institutional grant monies, and now you've got another one coming along, and you just assumed you were going to get grants for both, I highly encourage you to contact your student's school and ask them, are they still going to honor the grant that your student received with the new going in for the 2024 new FAFSA? If they're a CSS profile school, some will say, yes, we're still going to count that with the CSS profile, and others may not. You need to know that. Don't, put your head in the sand, because that's going to, it's going to be a big part of whether you're going to be able to continue that student at that school and what's coming up for this next student.
Luanne, can I just interrupt and ask a few questions that get repeated in the chat? One of the questions is about the timing of filling out the profile, and particularly like if a family fills it out for a student applying early decision, and then they end up applying, to other schools a little bit later in the process. Can they use the same form? Do they have to redo it because the assets maybe are different?
Well, if the assets, if there's quite a gap in between, then you can go in, add a school, because you're going to send it to each individual school. So in a case like that, if you're adding, say, another two schools because you learned that they didn't get into the early decision or such, then I've never done this, but I would assume that you would then go in, because you can add additional schools, but if there's a substantial change in the assets and such, just make sure that you have screen shares or statements so that you can document that. Go in and you can go into each of these sections and edit it, but just be aware that you're going to just send it to that school. You're not sending it out like on the FAFSA that it goes out to all the other schools.
But I guess the reverse of that too is that if things haven't really changed, then they can just add the new school and then send it.
Right, right.
Okay. And then another question.
Let me add to this. You might be applying to an early decision school and you're hoping that that's going to come in, and you don't want to send out, maybe you don't want to pay the fees for these other schools, but you better make sure that you're looking at what is the deadline for those other schools to get that CSS profile in, because you might get the decision from the early decision school after the deadline date for the CSS profile for the other schools that are on your list. So just make sure that you pay attention to deadline dates.
There was another question, about optional, or do they truly, do you have to fill out everything even if it's not required?
You don't have to do anything if you want to pay full pay, but if it applies to you, you're completing an application. So I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, one person asked, and I don't know where they got the information from, is that saying that did they really have to fill out all the information about the taxes? Because aren't they submitting the taxes anyhow? Won't they see it that way?
Yes, you have to fill out all the information about the taxes. And yes, you are probably going to have to upload your taxes to, if the school requires it, whether it's going to get uploaded through iDoc or directly into the school portal. It just depends on each school how they're going to require that. And some of them are still going to ask for a tax transcript because they don't trust the information on your tax return. So it's, like I said, it's their game, their rules. You have to do what they ask. So yes, if you're going to complete the CSS profile in the hopes of getting any kind of institutional aid, you answer all the questions that are pertinent to you, and especially every line item, because if you don't, they're not going to look at your CSS profile.
Okay, so continue on. Just wanted to clear that up.
Okay. When it comes to child support, you want to make sure, are they asking for child support received or paid? Now, on the CSS profile, it's total amount received for all children required. And the next screen is going to say how much of the child support that you received is for the student that this application is for. So child support is not on the tax return. So, once again, it's what they're asking for. And here, as I stated, you're going to break out how much child support did you receive for that particular student. Now, child support paid. How much did you pay in 22 or 23? You break it up into the two different separate lines there. Now, expenses, medical, dental expenses, not covered by insurance. So basically, if you're uncovered and unreimbursed expenses were more than 3% of the parent's total income, you can go ahead and include that information. You just better make sure that you have your documentation. It will be asked for. And don't include any amounts that were covered by insurance or a government-sponsored plan, anything that you were reimbursed by FSA or HSA accounts, and self-employed health insurance deductions. You do not include those. So are you still paying student loans for yourself, for another student? Are you paying alimony? And then it's going to, break down. Only include education college loans in the parent's name. If you used an equity line to pay for college, that is not an education loan. So just be aware of that. And how much do you expect to pay for college loans in 23? So the majority of people since March, mid-March of 2020, there has been a pause on the student loans. There's been no payments that were due on the federal side and no interest that was accruing. So, most families were not paying. They just will now start paying student loans again starting today, October 1st. So, so there's not going to be much there if you were one of those that took advantage of the pause. And how much do the parents still owe for, remember, Luanne is the student, or the other siblings. Now, assets, current amount in cash, savings, checking, and deposit accounts. So this would be cash, savings, checking, and say a money market. And it is as of the balance of the day that you're filing. Now, if you do a screen share tonight and you don't get this done until Tuesday or Wednesday, you're going to be fine. But do not estimate. Do not, I think it's around 500 or so. It needs to be exact, not to the penny. But if you have $101.67, it's $102. If you've got $101 or $100.97, it's you just round up or round down. Now, remember I said at the beginning, you should have all your statements just sitting in a pile right beside your computer. So 529 college savings plans are a parent investment. If you have a prepaid tuition plan, you call the administrator of the plan and ask, what is the current balance in my prepaid tuition plan? That is considered a parent asset. And any of the other qualified education plans out there. Your brokerage accounts, stock options, as well as your stock accounts, savings bonds, municipal bonds, you get what the value is, CDs, non-retirement annuities, so you don't include your retirement balances, qualified retirement. If you have decided you don't have a 401k, a 403b, a SEP, a simple, any qualified retirement. You just decided that your retirement monies you put into a brokerage account because you didn't want to pay the fees for the deferred accounts or such. That is not a qualified retirement account, and you have to include that in your investments. I've run into a lot of parents over the years. Well, but that is my retirement. I just don't have it in a qualified retirement account. Then it is not a qualified retirement account. It's an investment. So you do not include the equity in your primary residence, your business, farm, and real estate, and retirement plans. You will put this elsewhere. So you're not getting over, but you're going to have it elsewhere. So a lot of times people, they just don't read it. And now they're overstating their assets, and they've just lost out on grant monies. So now, own real estate beyond the primary home. And it could be land, your vacation house, a second home, whatever. If it's a piece of property that's in your name, you need to find out what the value is. And over here on the yellow box, any assets that are owned by other children in the family, like their checking account, savings account, or such, is not added here. But if mom and dad have a, uniform gift to minors account, UTMA, anything that is in that they are the custodian for their other minor children, will get included in those parent assets. Now, current value market of investments. Again.
Wait, sorry, Luanne, can we go back for a second about the UGMA UTMAs?
Yes.
That's you just referring to if they are UGMA UTMAs for other students or other children in the family.
Correct.
If the student who the CSS profile is for has an UGMA UTMA, where will that fall?
It's going to get added as the student.
I just wanted to clarify that because somebody did ask about that, and so if it's an UGMA UTMA for the current student who's filling out the CSS profile, it will be a student asset. But if there are other UGMA UTMAs that the parents are on for other children in the family, they will be parental assets.
Correct.
Okay.
So again, and trust funds, that's always well, geez, I can't touch this money until I'm 35 or whatever. It's still the value of those trusts have got to be disclosed. This is a real deep dive, nitty gritty into your financial foundation.
Wait, so sorry, Luanne, before you, if you go back, and I was answering a lot of questions, so about 529 plans.
So 529 plans are a parent investment. And so it's always going to get listed under the parent assets.
The question that always comes up is you might have 529 plans for several of your children, but in your head, you're thinking, well, this particular account is for the child that's, I'm filling out the form for, but how should all of that 529 money be treated?
Okay, so we discussed it, so I'll repeat it. So they're going to ask, there's the screen that says the 529 for all of the children in the family. And then the next screen, what is the 529 that is just for that student? So it's the same as child support. They want child support for all of that is received for all of the children in the family. And then they want to know, well, how much is that breakdown for that student. It's the same with the 529.
And what
Now-
about if grandparents are paying from a grandparent 529?
Well, this has got nothing to do with the grandparents.
Okay, just wanted to know, it was a question, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
bring it up.
Yeah, so anyone that, and that's the good thing with the FAFSA change this year too. None of that other grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody outside of the parents, the 529s are not going to get assessed as the student, because in the past, it counted as student income on the following year if, say, grandma pulled monies out of a 529 and paid the college. The following year, you would have to disclose that as student income, which is assessed greatly. That's going away. And also what's going away on the FAFSA, which is not on the CSS, is they only are asking for the 529 balance of the student that is attending, that the application is for. So in that case, for the FAFSA, if you've got 2 or 3 other children that you have 529 plans for, you are not going to include that as a parent investment asset on the FAFSA, but you do have to disclose it on the CSS profile.
Okay, one more question, because we're talking about kind of assets. I see here, this is an interesting question. A parent has a joint account with their student. So where would that money be reported?
So it depends. So if the joint account is because the parent opened up the account and the student was underage or such, and if it's the student's, checking and savings account, it's going to be counted as a student asset.
It sounds like this was money that was gifted by a grandparent, but they gifted it to both is in a joint account with both the parent and the student.
It's going to depend on if it's gifted from like a trust or such, or if it was just a gift. It's going to depend on whose tax return is that. There may not be any tax, but it's either going to be a parent asset or a student asset. Without seeing the documentation, I can't really give an accurate.
Okay.
Do you want me to go forward?
Yes, go forward. Sorry, thanks.
Okay. So now if you've got other real estate, other than your primary home, then you're going to break this. And, for those of you that you might have real estate outside of the country, start trying to get that information early, because sometimes it takes a while if you don't have all your documentation, and they're going to want it. So be aware of that. And once again, market value, again, don't use the assessed value, your tax value and such, and only report the mortgage debt, not if it's a personal loan or a consumer loan, no escrow payments and such, just the principal and interest on a mortgage. Now, number of businesses. So the business section and the family farm section, you're going to want to get this information from your CPA or your accountant, or you're going to take it from your business tax returns. But they're going to ask, what type of a business do you have? What percentage do you own? So if you have a non-family partner, you're just going to disclose what your portion of the business is. So don't overstate things. And, when did you start the business? Do other family members have ownership in the business? What's the market value? Again, don't overstate. And, I'll use myself as an example. I don't have inventory. I don't have, I lease an office. I have my laptop, my computer, my screens and such. So I have very little value. So it's not, if I was to sell my practice one day, I'm not going to disclose that here because it has no value right now. So just, don't overvalue your, if you do have a business. And what do you owe? Don't include, personal loans, consumer loans, and so forth. Your gross receipts, again, is telling you exactly what lines to get all this information from. And the family farm, so in the past, this information has only been on the CSS profile starting, when we filed the FAFSA, probably in the beginning of January. We're going to also have to disclose the value of our family farms and small businesses, which is just devastating, I think. But hopefully this, we're still trying to fight that from happening, but I don't think we're going to win it for this year anyways. So now student income, again, it's just kind of the same information for the student as it was for the parent. And if they did not file a tax return, I suggest that any of you that have students that did not file a tax return, and as well for you, get a tax transcript for yourself now, while you're not in a sense of urgency, and get a non-filer tax transcript for your student, because some of your schools are going to ask for a tax transcript. So especially if you're in a situation where you've had tax fraud and you're unable to electronically file your taxes and such, just be proactive and request these things now. We didn't have a government shutdown, but it's still temporary, whatever they did. So be proactive now and get some of this stuff taken care of while you can, just in case. It doesn't cost anything other than time. And you can just go to the irs.gov site and it will walk you through. I think it's what 1098T is the form. But there is a form for tax filers and non-tax filers. They just don't trust us, So, did they file or not? And you'll see, again, you're just going to get their information right from their tax return. Now, if they didn't file and because they earned less than $12,000 and didn't have to file a tax return and whatnot, you're still going to have to disclose their W-2 earnings or 1099 earnings, however it is. So just be aware of that. And income, did they have any earnings from a work-study program, from a co-op offered by the college, grants, fellowships, and so forth? So for those of you that are going to have to file this again because your student received grants and scholarships and whatnot, and need to continue to file the CSS to receive those, just be aware that some of this, these scholarships and grants that you're receiving are going to be taxable. Some of them, not all of it. Untaxed student income, if they are receiving dividends from UGMAs, UTMAs, trusts, and so forth. So student expected income and benefits, again, just like the parents, what do you expect them to receive in the year 24, 25? You're guessing. So if you have a student that hasn't worked in high school and you don't plan on them working during the college year, this estimate as best as you can for the 9-month school year period, put a 0. If you think that they're going to this 3-month over the summer, you can put $500, $1,000. It's not, they're not expecting an accurate figure. This is in the future. Okay, student resources. Do they provide the best estimate of what the student's parents are planning to pay for the student's educational expenses, tuition, and so forth? Everybody gets stuck on this one. Well, if I put too much here, then we're not going to get any grants. And if I put 0, maybe they won't accept my student. So just be honest. Oftentimes, and this, you don't include the amount that you're planning on borrowing from federal loans, from Parent Plus loans, from co-signed loans or such. But let's just say that you've got a 529. Split it out, over the 4 years and put that amount. That's what you were planning on spending. If you knew that, hey, we're going to, pay as we go and maybe $500 a month during the school year, just be honest. And if it's 0, put 0. You can't go wrong here. They're not judging you. So just be honest. Employers, tuition benefits and such, that covers, tuition fees and so forth. Relatives, other than their parents, providing funds to help pay for college. If you know for a fact that, okay, your parent, the grandparent, has got a 529 and they're going to split it up over the 4 years, you can put that there. But if they've just told you, yeah, we're going to help, and you don't know, sometimes what they think they're helping is maybe $1,000 a semester, because they're thinking that it was so inexpensive, like when they paid for you to go to college, and they don't realize that the costs have gone up so much. So if you don't have a figure, just leave it at 0. But anything that says required, you've got to have a figure there. Okay. And again, if this is a student that has any kind of military VA benefits and such, student assets, do they have any investments, a trust? How much does the student currently have in cash, savings, checking, and deposit accounts? Again, enter the total value as of today. And here you've got what should I include? And it has a breakdown of everything. And do not include if the student has a home, a business, farm, real estate, or they have their own retirement plan. I know a lot of students have a Roth IRA started. That's not where you put that. Value of all trusts that the student is a beneficiary of. Parents hate this, but it's there. And some of these things, flow through your tax return. So this is why they ask as many questions as they do, because they'll see those dividends or such on the tax return, and then you say, no, there's nothing here. Well, they know that there's a trust somewhere. So just be truthful. Does the student have any retirement assets? And okay, so we're almost done. So special circumstances. This is where the CSS profile is so beneficial to do if you have had changes in your family situation. So if you've had a change in employment through COVID, exceptional medical or dental expenses, those of you that have, special needs children that you are paying a lot of excessive medical expenses for, this is where you can explain those things where you can't explain it on the FAFSA. If you've had job loss, if you're now responsible for taking care of your parents, non-recurring income or expenses. If you got a bonus in 2022 of $60,000 that you will never receive again, and this is where you can explain those kind of things. If you have $200,000 sitting in your savings account because you sold your home, it's the profit from selling your home, and now the market has done what it's doing and you can't buy another home, this is where you can explain those additional assets. So you have up to 2,000 characters to do this. So application review.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Oops.
No,
Go ahead. Sorry, Luanne.
Sure. So we're almost finished here. So are you ready to submit your application? I want to review it. Do not skip the review. So because it's going to come up, well, you might have some of these data checks, students' social isn't there, or this big one, tax deferred pension and retirement savings plan contributions are often reported incorrectly. Why is that there? I've come across a lot of people that do not have any qualified retirement accounts, or it's very little and it doesn't track with what they would expect them to have. So this will come up. You'll click on parent income and benefit details. It will take you back to that retirement section, and you can just click in the boxes and have the same figures so that they know that you've gone back and you've checked it. Same thing if you didn't put the social security number in there. You go back there and for some reason you decided, I'm not going to put the social in there, no matter what they say. At least you went and checked. They know that you've checked it, and then that won't show up again. So once you've gone through and adjusted everything, you'll, I've read, understand, and agree. And now it's going to come up to the fee. So the final charge summary. And if this is where, if you had qualified for waivers, you're not going to see any fees here. Do not close your browser until you see your dashboard to ensure that your application and payment information is fully processed. I cannot stress that enough. There's so many hiccups with technology. Look at what happened at the beginning of the Zoom, just disconnected right at the start of the session. So do not close your browser until you see that it's been processed. Are you going to pay by credit or debit card, or do you have a fee payment code? If you have a fee payment code, and let's just say that you didn't pay attention and you paid by credit card, and oh my gosh, I forgot I have a fee payment code. you can't go back in and get a refund. So just, slowly go through this. Please note, refunds will not be issued for fees paid prior to submitting payment codes. Ta-da, we're done. So in past years, I had a bottle of wine there or a bottle of beer, but now I thought, let's just have fireworks, because once you submit this, it's kind of like the common application. I don't know this year if it's going to be the same. You might have confetti that comes down. Congratulations, you've completed. So Debbie, I don't know if there's some other.
Oh, so many, but I'm going to try and group them together, and maybe I'm going to scroll backwards to get to ones that I haven't been able to answer.
Okay.
So there's just been a lot of questions about the grandparent 529. Let's just quickly repeat it. I know you even said it before, but just to kind of say we said it, and then we'll move on. A grandparent 529 plan does not have to be reported, correct?
Nowhere.
Nowhere, exactly.
Not on the CSS profile and not on the new FAFSA.
Okay, so that's good. Let me move on. Oops, okay, just lost my chat for a second. Let me get the chat back. Okay.
I see the sign. Do we get a fee payment code or waiver from our high school if offered? That's for the common application. That's not for the CSS profile. The only way that you're going to get a fee waiver is if you have had a SAT waiver fee, or if your financial information is such that they are giving you a fee waiver. It's under 100,000 AGI and minimal assets.
Okay, so can we review, again, there are a lot of questions on this about parents, and mainly divorced parents, remarried parents, parents who were never married to begin with, might live with each other, might not live with each other. Do you want to take each one of these separates? How about we start with parents that are divorced and not remarried? Who needs to fill out the forms?
Say that again. Parents who are divorced
and not remarried. Neither one are remarried.
So just both parents.
Okay, now let's move on. What about a parent that divorced, whether or not, and either one or both are remarried? Who needs to fill out the form?
The parents, the biological parents, and the step parents.
Right. So anybody who, any biological parent who has remarried, that step parent is now required to fill out the FAFSA. I think that's a little bit of a shock to some people.
Not the FAFSA, the CSS.
I'm sorry, CSS profile, yes.
Yeah. And I saw somebody say, so let me, again, the grandparent 529. So on the CSS profile, yes, there was the section that said, is your child receiving monies from anyone else, relatives or such? And so, yes, if a grandparent has, they're giving them, they've got monies for a 529, or just going to give them, monies from a mutual fund or CD or such, that's going to get disclosed there. What I was referring to in the past, the 529 accounts, if a grandparent dispersed money from a 529 for their grandchild, it doesn't show up on the FAFSA, but it would count the following year as income against the student. That is no longer going to count as income against the student on the FAFSA. But on the CSS profile, it's asking, are they receiving money from relatives or such? And that would include the 529.
Okay, one more parental situation to describe. What if the parents never married and they don't live together?
If the if they're both in the life of the student, then it said unmarried, not living together and such. So they're still a parent. They just never got married. And if a and I don't want to confuse things, but I'm going to on the new FAFSA, if they never got married, but they're living together, unmarried and it's the biological child, they both are going to be on the FAFSA in addition to the CSS profile.
Okay. There's a quick question here that somebody's asking about amended tax returns. Just, is there anything that somebody needs to know if they have an amended tax return?
So you definitely want to get the tax transcript because it will get asked then. You're going to put the amended information if you've got it, and just be prepared for the documentation. And before I forget, yes, they're going to, most schools are going to have you upload your tax return in iDoc or to the school's website or portal or such. They want that document signed, and they will not accept it if it's not signed. Now, I know all of us, for the most part, we electronically sign our tax return, our CPAs or accountants electronically sign. It doesn't matter. You have to print it off and wet sign it and date it as the date that the tax return was submitted. And keep a clean copy of that, because some schools are so painful, they're going to require you to put their student ID number on each page of a tax return or such. So keep a clean copy of your signed document, and then, you know, make a copy if you've got a couple of schools that are requiring information printed. You have to read the directions and follow them to a T, or they will not accept it. And if you upload and it's blurry or it's crooked, or, you know, the edges are cut off, they will not accept it in iDoc. So, you know, if you have to go over to Staples and have it uploaded, if you don't have, you know, you can't do a scan, or you don't have a, you know, a way of doing it yourself. They're very particular.
Can you repeat a little bit the discussion about 2022 taxes, and then an estimate for 2023, and if people are expecting changes to their income?
Well, I mean, they're asking that question. So the thing is, you don't know for sure. So you don't have to worry about it being exact like you do the exact figures, the line items on that they're asking for from your 21 taxes. So it's asking for an estimate. So years ago, when FAFSA didn't open until February or January 1st, and we would have to submit estimated income and taxes to get those submitted, and then follow up with the you know, get your taxes done as soon as possible to follow up with now the confirmed. So you know, they then changed, I don't know, 5-6 years ago or so to October 1st, which makes it easier now. And so the majority of us have our taxes already done for 2022. there are some, business owners especially that, keep extending out and such. You need to get your taxes done as soon as
As
possible.
soon as possible, yeah, especially these years.
Yeah.
So somebody's just asking, I don't know if you know, Luanne, the question about what do your parents plan to pay? They're wondering, what's the purpose of that question?
I've asked that myself for the last 20 years. You can't get a straight answer from anybody. So it just depends. I think they're doing it just to be mean. But they're just trying to get an idea. Like I said, they need full pay students as well. So sometimes they can only give out so much. So that's why, you just have to be honest. And some of these are just not going to be the school if they don't, if they're not going to follow along. A number of years ago, I had a student for that required the non-custodial parent, and dad refused to do it. And he had money. So it wasn't that he was broke or anything. He was just being very difficult. And the financial aid office just told my client, well, then we're not the school for your student.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah.
So.
Okay, another question. Somebody's asking, you talked about the special circumstances section, and they're wondering if it's worthwhile to save a special circumstance to include if they were to do a financial aid appeal instead of listing it in the CSS profile.
Say that again.
So the section that where you can kind of talk about some special circumstances, somebody is asking it whether or not maybe they have multiple special circumstances and when they should share everything in the CSS profile, or should they save and use some of the special circumstances if they end up doing an appeal.
So the special circumstances section in the CSS profile is not the special circumstances or change of circumstances or financial aid appeal. That's in addition to. So if you have things that you can disclose because of what you've input on your CSS profile as far as job loss or change in income and such, you should do that there. But you're still, if your student gets accepted at this school, you're still going to have to go in and whatever they require for change in circumstances, appeal forms and such, you're still going to have to do that. You're not done with the CSS. And also too, you are not done once you submitted. You're going to log back in and then you're going to see what are the requirements for IDOC, what are the, and again, in the student portal, other requirements. So you're not anywhere close to being done just because you just spent several hours doing the CSS profile.
Okay, so I'm just scrolling back to see a few others. If a student receives SSI, does it qualify as student income?
Are they, so it depends. If they're receiving it because of a parent being disabled, or I hate to say that without seeing exactly what it is. So on the CSS profile, and I wish I could go back to the format, but it would just take too long to find it. It definitely states what you should and should not disclose for SSI disability coming from Social Security, or I think also if you're receiving private disability income from your employer, even though maybe it's not taxed, it's untaxed, you would still have to disclose that.
And as you can see, I'm kind of just bringing up your comment, Luanne, that of all of the CSS profiles that you reviewed, only one was done correctly. It's because all of these, like special circumstances of not really knowing, which, wouldn't expect a parent to know these nuances, but it's just tricky. Okay, how about we end with just one more discussion or the explanation of the tax transcript and how you can order it. Because that was a big question. Sure.
So you just go to irs.gov. So Google has become my friend over the years. So just Google tax transcript, or you can just go to the irs.gov site and you'll see where it says, tax transcript. And so you just have to, again, read it slowly to make sure that you're ordering the right one. But some of these schools are going to require a tax transcript. If you can't file your taxes electronically, if you had an amended tax return that is not in the system, if your student did not file a tax return, if you didn't file a tax return, whatever. So there's going to be, you can order your tax return or tax transcript. You have to indicate it was for the year ending December 31st, 2022. And, just check the boxes. I don't have one in front of me to know exactly what it says, but you'll just have to read the instructions. For your student, you will file a separate one, and it's a non-filer tax transcript, because if they didn't file a tax return. And it just comes back and it says, no, we do not have a tax return in the system for this student. And the tax return or transcript that they send for the parent, if you just get the 2-page version, you ordered the wrong one. The 5, 6, 7-page version is the full tax transcript. So they feel that it's official because it's come directly from the IRS. Because remember, it's the CSS profile is in a couple of years, when the FAFSA is back next year on October 1st, and maybe because the new FAFSA is going to be tied to the IRS. They're going to transmit your 1040 into the FAFSA. So then if you've got that along with the CSS, then they've got the documented proof. So there should not be the situation where they're going to be asking for tax transcripts unless you couldn't, once again, you haven't been able to file electronically, there was tax fraud, whatever the case is, those difficulties.
Okay, well, thank you, Luanne. We try to get it done quickly, but this is just not a topic you can cover quickly. And I know that there's still a lot of questions that we probably could continue on with, but I think this is enough to get people started. Maybe we will schedule something in like another 2 weeks or something that might just be a pure AMA where people come with questions, and we can spend an hour just answering questions. But I think you did an amazing job. Thank you, Luanne, tonight. Sure. And I hope that everybody can get started on their CSS profile and
pay attention to the deadlines.
Yes.
They don't play around. And, just don't put your head in the sand and think, well, geez, I'm not really sure if they really want to go to this school or such. If you think there's any chance, and, their deadline, let's just say, is November 15th, just get it in.
Particularly for the early action and early decision deadlines, I would, I mean, you can't fool around in general with deadlines, but those are coming up kind of quickly. They will probably be, usually I've seen like the November 1st application deadline will have a November 15th financial aid deadline. So you don't have that much time.
No, you don't. And remember, it usually takes College Board 3 to 5 business days to transfer that CSS profile to the colleges. So don't wait to like the day, because some of these schools will penalize you if it's not in their, their queue, that it's already been processed through the College Board.
So honestly, with that advice, if your student is applying early, and again, a majority of deadlines are November 1st, I would just, in my head, assume that when my student has to send in their application, we need to be done with financial aid forms as well.
Yep. Yeah. So
it's a busy month. This October is a busy month.
Yeah, my private clients, we're already, filing right now. So just get it done. There's going to be so much confusion this year, and also to just have a sense of grace for the financial aid departments at these colleges. They are going to be so overwhelmed this year. It's just going to be a mess. And it's going to be challenging all the way around. So try not to lose your patience with them. They're going to be doing their best that they can. The good news is that if you are going to put an appeal in, they cannot come back to you and say, no, we don't look at appeals. They all now are required to look at and consider every appeal. So they are going to be overworked, underpaid. And I read something the other day. There's a very high percentage of people that work in financial aid that are looking for other jobs. So
completely understandable what they'd have to go through this year. I would, to feel the same way. I mean, between, as you're saying, between what they're dealing with now with FAFSA and then the appeal season, it's from, October 1st to next summer. It's just going to be constant work. Yeah. So it's going to be a difficult year for everyone. Plus, I mean, we thought COVID was bad. It's just, I think this is going to top the cake. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Luanne. See you all soon. Bye. All righty. Take care. Bye-bye. I'm heading home.